All right. Now the other thing is the static variables that also you were asking about this. What is a static variable? Well, now it is hard to give it an example about it in most of the cases, but instance variables are for each individual of that class. Like a student has a name, each student has a different name, each student has a different GPA, each student, I don't know, you can name it in this way. But when we are talking about static variables, it belongs to the concept of that class, not its in the instances. Um, which means that like when I create multiple instances, okay, if they have a static variable, only one will be created because I have only one student concept. For instance, for the math, let's say that there's a math library in Java which allows you to do many operations like take the cosine, take the power, square root, and so on. And it has a variable pi. Now, I don't need multiple pi variables. It's always same. It's 3.14 and so on and so on. So I don't need to create a separate pi variable for each math object. So it's like a concept in mathematics. So I don't need a separate variable for each. For those cases, then I can use it as a static variable. And to do that, well, so what it means is all objects of that class share one memory, use the same memory location for that variable, but for the instances, they have a separate variables. What does it mean is any change in the static variable will reflect to all of them. I will actually show it here with an example. Let me zoom out a little bit from here. Let's go to my test part. Let me delete this part. Let's say that we have this static variable, okay? Static int integer x. And we have something not static, which is y. Then, this is my class test. So I would like to create two test objects. One of them is t1, the other one is t2. Then I will change this variable. I will increment it by 1, but through t1. Okay? I set it for t1, and then I will also do it through t2. I will increment it also by 1. Then I will print the variable t1.x. So what do you think that the value will be printed? We have 2, so it starts from 1. Is it 2, 1, or 3? That's the question actually.
1.
We have 1, 2. Anyone who's saying 3? No one? No one is saying 3. All right. Can I say 3? That it would be 3? It will be 3. So now why is this? Let me open that code again. So the result will be basically 3 here. So they are using the same memory location for this variable, both t1 and both t2. So when I first increment it through t1, 1 will become 2. Then when I do it from here, it's the same memory location I'm using it. So it will be increased from 2 to 3. So that is 3 now. Then when I try to print it, it will be 3. So this variable is not specific to each individual. Like this won't be the case for this non-static variable, which is y. Let me do it also here. Like let me also make it 1. Okay. Then let me increment y also by 1. And also let me also do it for this one. And I'll also print it now, this y variable, which is not static. Now, what will be the value for this one? Yes, now this will be true. Let's just run it and see.
Because it's not static.
Because it's not static, which means,
Has to know.
yes, for each T1 and T1 and T2, they have separate Y variables. So this is increasing its own copy, and this is increasing its own copy. They are different variables, they're in the different locations. But this for X, they are sharing that variable. This is their own variable, so that's why it is the case. Now, this is one part. And also, when we are talking about static variables, actually this is not a very common way to access these static variables. Because when I say that, okay, this variable belongs to the concept of this class, then it means that I don't need any instance actually to access it. What it means is, I can also say test.x. Like, let me print it actually. Test.x. And this is also valid. Like, I'll just print it now. Now it also says 3. So what, I'll open this here. Why is this? Again, first, I cannot do it for y. If I say test y.y, then it will say, okay, I'll get an error because y is for each specific instance of that class. But x belongs to that concept of the class. So I don't need to create an instance of that class to access it if it is static. If it is static, I can just say the class name dot the static variable name or so. Yes.
Is it referred to this?
What is it?
Is it referred to this keyword?
Oh, this keyword. Well, we use this keyword only in this class definitions to show that, yeah, it belongs to like this class in the class definition. But here we are not using it as at this part. This keyword is used to resolve the name conflicts mainly. And yeah, there's some other usages that we can give this, but it will be, we will see it inshallah in graphical user interface mostly. But we use it in the class definition. But this is not the class definition, this is our now main method, so we are creating and we are running our codes. And so short answer, and just to wrap up, we don't need to create an instances to access static variables. We can just access it through this class names. And you see, yeah, if I forget something, yeah, they also have the default values, which means if you don't declare them, if it is integer, it is 0, if it is boolean, it is false, and so on. And well, when you are like usually the early beginning, you might tend to put static everywhere. Please don't do it. It is, again, it might cause some problems. It might cause, again, even some algorithmic problems. So you just need to select wisely which ones should be static. And the case is, again, like even again, the main thing is for each student or for that class, does each individual has the same value or not? If they have different name, like different value, like the student name, each student can have a different name, then it should not be static. But if you think that, okay, it should be valid for all students, then yeah, then you can set it to static. Let's say, of course, you should not do it in that way, but you can say for a student, let's say that we define the name of the head of the department or name of the president of the university, okay? So it applies to all students. If one of them changes, then it should be applied change for all the other students. So yeah, then you can make it static maybe. So this is because it's same for all students. It belongs. So this is one example, but of course, probably we won't do it when you are really implementing a university system like this. But at least as an example for static variables. Yes, please.
When you make a function static, is the variables inside it static?
Oh, that's a pretty good question.
Because it says you can only access the static.
Yes, I'll talk about it. I'll give an example. So we have seen methods, sorry, variables, but also you can define methods as a static. And so when we make a static method, well, what is the good for it? Again, you don't need to create an instance to run that function. So there are some restrictions on how it is run. So let me show it from also here. If I have any function here, public void non-static function, and the content is not important actually for me, so I will leave it empty, but I'll say let's create also a static function, which is a static function, okay? But that's the keyword, so let me say it in this way, function and non-static function. I'll just, all right, then I'll pass it to the back. So again, I can call this non-static function if I have an instance of it, but I cannot call it without any creating a function, an instance of it. But for the static function, I can say it again, t1.static function and test.static function. So this is all valid. You can see here, like maybe it's not visible, I don't know, but I got a yellow underline here, which means a warning actually. Which means that you can run it, it's valid, but this doesn't make sense to be honest. From a coding perspective, if you will run a static method, you don't need an instance because that method belongs to again that concept of that student concept, let's say, or whatever the mathematical concept and so on. So you don't need it. So this is actually a weird part. And for the static and non-static methods, now it also comes with some restrictions. What it means is, for instance, in a non-static method, and I'll do it also here. I'll actually put the same code. So in a non-static function, I can access this both of it, but in a static function, I can access to the static variables, but I cannot access to the non-static ones. So this is also an important aspect of it. And well, again, why should I need it? Static methods. Well, static methods are created only once when with the class. So it's not when you run the program. It's you don't need the instance. It is created at that time, and you don't need its method to run. Actually, it brings a very useful scenario. Like sometimes we have these applications like I have a character and I just want to know, okay, is it a digit or not? Is it a letter or not, for instance, okay? So for that case, these are static functions, which means that for that very particular operation, is this lower a, is that an uppercase or not? I don't need to create a character class just to run this function. I can just run character.to uppercase so that it will be done. I don't need to create instances of character classes. Or again, I don't need to convert a string to an integer. Okay, I need to call this parse int. I don't need to create an instance of an integer. I just run that function. So that would be enough for me. So this is actually a very good case for us there are some very common functions, like I just need to calculate the cosine value of something, okay? Then I don't need to create an instance of a math class. I just call it the static function. So actually it reduces the complexity of our code, because otherwise I would be creating so many functions that would be very distracting, because I will have a character class, an integer, and a character instance, an integer instance, math instance. So that will be pretty distracting for me, because at the end of the day, okay, I'm trying to just implement a game. I'm just trying to implement an e-commerce platform. Why do I have all these characters, integers, instances? That would be very distracting for me also. So that's also an advantage of static methods. And it's 5:50, so I think I should stop here. Thank you for attendance. I really appreciate that. This is the class for today.